An Oklahoma judge dismissed 3 felony child sexual abuse charges against a police official, despite forensic evidence proving that this cop did molest this child. Now, to give you some more details on this, and Jimmy, I'm sure you're going to jump in and rip this guy apart, Pittsburgh County Special District Judge Matthew Sheets dismissed the felony child sex charges against Martin Stites because the girl, now 4, was unable to describe in detail how she was molested. Now, let me give you some more context into this story. When the girl was molested, she was 3 years old. Now, the only person who testified during this case before the charges were dropped was this girl who had turned 4 years old at the time of the trial. She's a 4-year-old, so obviously she's going to have a tough time testifying, especially when it comes to something as traumatic as a police officer, or a retired police official, I should say, molesting you. Now, in May of 2015, the girl was taken to a local hospital by a Pittsburgh County Sheriff's investigator, where it was determined by a nurse that the 3-year-old had been sexually assaulted. By the way, the sheriff's investigator and the nurse were not included in any of the testimony. They were not called at all. When another deputy went to Stites' residence to collect the child's clothing, they discovered that the accused had burned the diapers the girl had been wearing.
Seems curious.
No, that's pretty standard. You guys don't have small kids, but you, well, Cenk, you do. You know, you generally, after you put a diaper away, you set fire to it.
Yeah, except for the fact that that never happens unless
never.
You're trying to destroy evidence.
That's right.
The story gets worse,
Yes,
much worse. Now, authorities at the time said a forensic analysis of the child indicated she'd been sexually assaulted. Authorities also said there was evidence to indicate the victim's clothing was burned after the fact. Now, Burns asked the victim if she could identify her assailant in the courtroom. The victim gave an answer, but the answer was not completely audible. Burns said she thought the victim said something along the lines of, "I don't know," but the victim's father jumped in and wanted to point out that she said, "I don't want to look at him." At that point, the judge got angry with the father for getting involved and basically kicked him out of the courtroom. And when the father got kicked out of the courtroom, he looked at the retired police official and told him some expletive. I don't know exactly what it was. The judge heard it and asked, "Did you just say what I think you said?" The father said yes. And as a result, he got a year-long sentence in prison.
Now, to be a little bit, give a little bit more detail on it. He got 6 months at the time.
He got arrested, handcuffed, brought back in, and then said, did you say? And the guy was honest.
Yes.
And he said, yeah, I said that. And so he gave him 6 months. And then he got mad at that.
Then he got mad and cursed again. He said, okay, now you got another 6 months.
Because 2 offenses.
Right. So let's review what happened here. The retired police official who was accused and had good evidence against him of molesting a 3-year-old, sexually assaulting a 3-year-old.
His daughter.
Not guilty. Okay. The father, who's outraged that his daughter was not just sexually assaulted, but that the evidence in the case was perverted, was wrong.
Even if it's genuine, was just upset that, no, you didn't hear right.
Yes.
You didn't hear right. Just tried to fix it.
Yeah.
Right.
He's going to go to prison for a year. So let's, so just a couple of really important things in this story. One is our priorities. If you disturb order at all, that is a very serious crime, and you'll go to prison for a year. You disturb the order slightly in that courtroom. Well, that's an offense against the judge. He can't have that. His feelings were hurt. Now, you were really upset that your 3-year-old daughter got sexually assaulted, and the judge had heard the evidence wrong. I don't care. You've disturbed authority a little bit. You're going away. Now, you sexually assaulted a 3-year-old girl who has no power at all. You say tomato, I say tomato. That's not that big a deal. You don't get prison. Now, look, let's be fair. It's just the fact that the accusation happened make him by de facto guilty. No, you got to have the trial, etc. But here are the curious parts of the trial that make you wonder if it turns out a former police official who's also powerful and part of the establishment in that neck of the woods and part of the authority and probably was in that courtroom many times. I don't know that part, but very likely the prosecutors, the cops, and the judges all work together day to day, right? So the prosecutor somehow doesn't bring in the nurse from the hospital who evaluated the girl and said that she was sexually assaulted. The prosecutor never calls her. The prosecutor never calls the Pittsburgh County Sheriff's investigators that did the investigation. Why wouldn't you call those guys? The only person the prosecutor calls there's a 4-year-old girl
In open court.
who's
In
having a
open
hard
court.
time testifying because she's a 4-year-old girl. She's a 4-year-old girl. What I don't understand is how you can rely on the testimony of a child that young to be the evidence in the case. She's going through something traumatic. It's very, very intimidating to be a 4-year-old girl sitting on the stand like that, answering questions about how you got molested by someone in power. I don't, this whole story is
But
disgusting.
So nobody sitting in that courtroom went, nobody with a gun on their hip, nobody with any authority, not another lawyer. Nobody stood up and said, hey, this is morally reprehensible, what's happening here. And what you're doing to this little girl is criminal. This is abuse. You shouldn't make a 4-year-old girl testify in open court in front of the person who raped her. You don't do that to a 4-year-old girl, and the judge is letting it happen, and all these adults are sitting around with guns on their hips, and they're all letting it happen, and they just let this happen. So this is the mentality of power. It's a perfect way you put it, Cenk. This is all about power, and this is about corrupt systems, and this is about they can do anything they want. Now, what recourse do the people have against this judge?
Well, first,
Nothing.
I think nothing. I mean, maybe he can be recalled. I don't know. We don't know if it's an elected judge or. But I'm outraged by a different part of it. It's what?
It's in Oklahoma.
It's in Oklahoma. Yeah. So it's a tough call. You have a right to face your accusers in open court. You have that right. And it doesn't make a distinction when your accuser is little. Now, normally there are ways that they get around that somehow. But a judge has obviously got to recognize the difficulty that the witness is going to have in that circumstance. But okay, if she can't make the identification, then maybe that case has to go away. Maybe it can't, if that's all the evidence you have, if you need it, that means he'd probably get acquitted. There's no, I'll grant them that, although I would hope that the police would stay on that guy until they caught him because they seem to know it's true, right? But for the judge to treat the father this way, I don't care what he said to him. I don't care if he said every curse word you can think of. It doesn't matter. You can take him out of court. You can take him out of court. I suppose you can bring him back in handcuffed. I wouldn't have done that. But what you can say is you go sit in my chambers and then you say, please don't do that again. But mostly what you say is, I am so sorry for what happened today. I had to throw you out of court. I had to keep the order in the court. But I'm sorry for what happened today. And then he goes home, and that's the end of it. There's no record. Nothing happens. That judge has complete discretion on what to do with that father. But somehow that he got cursed at because his authority was questioned in front of people, he's going to send that guy to prison for a year when that guy was seeing a major miscarriage of justice, saying no, you didn't hear her right. I'm her dad. I know what she was saying. Let me explain. That's outrage.
No, Ben's exactly right. They're pushing people too far, man. I mean, what wouldn't a dad do to protect his 3-year-old daughter? What wouldn't he do, right? So you're pushing people too far because this power has become so complete. Cops get to do whatever they want. Judges get to do whatever they want. Whoever's in power, there's no recourse anymore for the powerless, which is, by the way, the overwhelming majority of us. So, yeah, look, I don't know why the prosecutor didn't call obvious witnesses that they should have called. I don't know why the judge acted in the ways that he did in questioning that girl that he did. But look, you could make a case for maybe that you didn't have enough evidence because the prosecutor bungled it. Maybe you could make a case that, well, the girl had to testify in open court, although in many cases they do it in another way, right? But you cannot make a case for putting that dad in jail for a year,
zero.
right? Because that says to me you're a monster. Like, to you, that the fact that his daughter the guy burned the diaper. Whether you find him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in court is a different question than whether you think he actually did it. Seriously, one is you have to be 99% certain that he did it in order to put him in jail. The other is, well, I mean, look, did it actually happen?
Right.
Of course. Look, why did he burn the diaper? Why did he? And the forensic analysis says she was sexually assaulted, and he was the one taking care of her at that time. So the dad, and it doesn't matter. The girl got sexually assaulted, no matter who did it. The dad is obviously super pissed at that. Wouldn't you be pissed? But that judge doesn't have one iota of compassion towards that dad because, hey, man, I got the power and you don't.
I think it goes deeper than that. Look, the reason why that Netflix series Making a Murderer resonated with so many people is because it shows you the corruption within our justice system. How prosecutors in many cases are in cahoots with the judge, or the defense attorney could even be in cahoots with the judge. You see it all
Or
the
with
time.
the former police official.
Exactly.
Who conveniently, after having worked with him for how long, I don't know, they'll make a documentary about it one day, right?
Yeah.
But oftentimes, we've seen it time and time again in stories we've covered. Prosecutors go to indict a cop, just magically, that's the one time they can't get an indictment. They get an indictment 99.9% of the time, but they bring in a cop, and then they put on the defense for him in a grand jury, which is unheard of and preposterous. They've just basically said, we're the clique that's in charge, and there's not a goddamn thing you could do about it. But I'm telling you, they're pushing too far, because at some point, and we believe in civil disobedience, but that you're going to talk to civil disobedience to a dad who just went through this? Don't do it, man. You're pushing people too far, but they don't listen because they think that there are no consequences.
So would it be considered like out of bounds if you went and protested the judge Matthew Sheets outside of his courtroom? If you went and protested that, or maybe found out where he lived and protested
No, don't
outside
go
of
to
it?
anybody's
I'm
house.
asking. I don't know. Literally because I know
definitely go to the courthouse. Definitely, right?
and-
That's the most American thing you can do. Me, don't go to people's house. I think it's outside the bounds.
Okay, but here's who goes to people's houses. Here's who can go to people's houses. Every TV reporter.
Every TV reporter. That's what I'm.
Pound on his door every day. We need to talk to you. Wait for him to come outside. That's what you do.
Are you going to release him? Are you going to release him? Are you going to release that dad? Are you going to release that dad?
Are you going to release him
You know,
today?
that
We don't
girl,
even know his
by
name.
the way,
because we can't, because they need to protect the girl's name.
Yeah.
right. By the way, you know who needs her dad?
Yeah.
That girl who got sexually assaulted. And now you just took him away for a year.
That's a great point. Now, the 3 felony counts of child molestation have been dropped. However, the judge did order a new trial for one other charge based on the testimony of the 4-year-old girl. Apparently, he's facing one charge of lewd molestation.
Yeah.